Welcome to G Fun Facts Online, the show where we decode the fascinating science and data that shape our world. At the dawn of every month, an intricate dance of numbers takes place. These numbers are released to the public, and within minutes, they can send global financial markets soaring or tumbling. They can influence the decisions of the most powerful policymakers, and, whether you know it or not, they directly impact your life, your wallet, and your career opportunities. We're talking about the monthly jobs report. It might sound dry, but it's one of the most profound glimpses we get into the heart of a nation's economic and social well-being. Much like ancient augurs sought to divine the future by reading tea leaves, modern analysts pore over these figures to understand our present and predict our future. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're going to deconstruct this vital report, go beyond the confusing headlines, and learn how to read the economic tea leaves for ourselves. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what the reporters on TV are actually talking about, and you'll see why this single report is a rich, complex, and vital narrative of a country's health, revealing stories of opportunity, struggle, growth, and stagnation. To truly understand the jobs report, you have to know that it's not one single number. It's actually a story told from two different perspectives, a synthesis of two distinct and massive surveys conducted every month by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Think of it like a detective investigation. You want to interview the victim, but you also want to check their workplace for clues. You need both to get the full story. The first of these is the current population survey, but we can just call it the household survey. As the name suggests, this one focuses on people. Every month, the Census Bureau calls about 60,000 different households, which are carefully selected to represent the entire nation. They ask people about their work status during a specific week of the month. This survey is the source of the most famous economic statistic in the world, the unemployment rate. Because they're talking directly to people, they can also gather crucial details about age, gender, race, and ethnicity. This helps us see if economic progress is being shared equally, or if some groups are being left behind. The second investigation is the Current Employment Statistics Survey, also known as the Establishment Survey, or the Payroll Survey. While the first survey talks to people in their homes, this one talks to businesses. And it's a huge undertaking. It gathers data from about 121,000 businesses and government agencies, which covers over 600,000 individual worksites. This survey is the source of the other headline number you always hear about, the monthly change in jobs, or non-farm payrolls. It gives us a detailed look at the health of the business world, tracking not just how many jobs were added or lost, but also how much people are being paid and how many hours they're working. Because it's based on actual company payroll records, it's considered a very reliable measure of job changes. So why do we need two? Because they measure different things. The household survey tells us about people and their employment status. The establishment survey tells us about jobs, wages, and industries. One gives us the human perspective, the other gives us the business perspective. Together they create a robust, cross-checked view of the entire labor market. Every month, when the report is released, two numbers dominate the initial headlines and send ripples through the economy. These are the first patterns we see in the economic tea leaves. The first is the one we all know, the official unemployment rate, known technically as the U3 rate. This measures the percentage of the labor force that is jobless, but, and this is a key detail, is actively seeking employment. To be officially counted as unemployed, you must not have a job. You must have actively looked for one in the last 4 weeks, and you have to be available to start work. A low unemployment rate usually means the economy is strong, businesses are hiring, and people have money to spend. A high rate means the economy isn't creating enough jobs. But, as well, see, this number doesn't tell the whole story, because it excludes people who've given up looking for a job. The second headline number is non-farm payrolls. This comes from that survey of businesses. and it represents the net change in jobs in the economy over the last month. It's called nonfarm because it excludes farm workers, as well as the self-employed and a few other small categories. This figure is a powerful indicator of economic momentum. When companies are adding hundreds of thousands of jobs, it means they're optimistic and expanding. Financial markets react instantly to this number. But here's a fun fact that confuses a lot of people. Sometimes, a fantastic jobs report with huge payroll gains can actually make the stock market go down. Why would good news for the economy be bad news for stocks? In a word, inflation. If job growth is too strong and wages are rising too fast, it can fuel fears of an overheating economy. That might cause the central bank, the Federal Reserve, to raise interest rates to cool things down. Higher interest rates make it more expensive for companies to borrow money, which can hurt their profits and their stock prices. It's a delicate balance. While the headlines give you a snapshot, the real art of reading the jobs report is digging deeper into the subtler indicators. This is where you find the richer narrative. First, let's talk about what is arguably the most underappreciated metric, the labor force participation rate, or LFPR. This number measures the share of the entire working age population that is either employed or actively looking for work. It tells us how big the pool of potential workers is. This is incredibly important. Imagine the official unemployment rate is very low, say 3.5%. That sounds great, but what if the labor force participation rate has also been falling? That could mean the unemployment rate is only low because millions of people have become discouraged and dropped out of the workforce entirely. They're not counted as unemployed anymore, but they also don't have a job. A falling participation rate can signal underlying weakness and can slow economic growth in the long run. To get an even truer picture of the struggle in the economy, economists often look beyond the official U3 rate to something called the U6 rate. You can think of the U6 as the real unemployment rate. It's the broadest measure of unemployment and includes everyone the official rate does, plus two other important groups. First, it includes marginally attached workers. These are people who want a job but haven't looked for one in the past 4 weeks, including discouraged workers who have given up their search entirely. Second, it includes involuntary part-time workers. These are people working part-time jobs because they can't find full-time work. The U6 rate is always higher than the official U3 rate, and the gap between them tells a powerful story. During a recession, that gap gets wider as more people are forced into part-time work or give up looking. A narrowing gap during a recovery suggests the job market is getting genuinely healthier. Two other secret clues in the report are wages and hours. The data on average hourly earnings is a key indicator of inflation. When jobs are plentiful, businesses have to compete for workers by offering higher wages. That's great for workers, but if wages rise too fast, it can lead to higher prices for everyone. The Fed watches this number very closely. And finally, there's the average workweek. This is a brilliant leading indicator. Before a company commits to the cost of hiring a new employee, they will first ask their existing staff to work more hours. So an increase in the average workweek can be a sign that more hiring is just around the corner. Conversely, cutting hours is one of the first things a company does when demand slows, making it an early warning sign of future trouble. The jobs report is more than just economic data. It's a social document. The household survey breaks down the numbers by race, gender, age, and education level. This allows us to see how different groups are really doing. For example, the unemployment rate for Black workers has historically been persistently higher than for white workers, often by a ratio of 2 to 1. The report allows us to track if that gap is narrowing or widening. It also tracks long-term unemployment, meaning people who have been jobless for 27 weeks or more. This is a critical indicator of social health, as long-term unemployment can have devastating and lasting consequences on families and communities. So who is the most avid reader of this report? The officials at the Federal Reserve. Congress has given the Fed a dual mandate: promote maximum employment and maintain stable prices, meaning control inflation. The jobs report is the primary tool the Fed uses to grade itself on the employment part of its mission. A strong report might signal that it's time to raise interest rates to prevent inflation. A weak report might prompt the Fed to lower interest rates to stimulate hiring. This is why every jobs report is a high-stakes event, influencing everything from your mortgage rate to global capital flows. So, the next time you see the news about the jobs report, remember to read between the lines. Know that the first numbers you hear are preliminary and often get revised later. Look for the trends over several months, not just 1 month's data. And most importantly, remember that behind every number is a human story. The data tells us if jobs are being created, but the real story is in the quality of those jobs and the opportunities they provide. To read these economic tea leaves is to engage in a vital act of analysis, one that touches the lives of every single citizen. It's a monthly reminder that the health of a nation is tied directly to the ability of its people to find meaningful work. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.